Reality is also known as VR, is a technology that has been blown up in recent years with virtual reality headsets such as HTC Vive and budget options such as Google Cardboard. You may have heard of virtual reality through advertisements or through content creators such as YouTubers using things like HTC Vive or Oculus Rift. There are even test stations in some malls that are located in stores such as Microsoft Store. We're going to discuss a few topics involving virtual reality, including the evolution of technology, practical and entertainment uses, safe use, danger, and hazards. Technically, the history of virtual reality goes all the way back to the first panoramic painting from the 19th century. This is an example of virtual reality because the paintings were made to take up your entire field of view. In the late 1830s, Charles Wheaton showed users how the brain processed the different two-dimensional images from each eye in a single object of three dimension. This then gave users a sense of depth and immersion, which VR headsets do to this day. Then in 1929, there was a first flight simulation. Edward Link created the Link Trainer, and this was the first simulation available. The simulation was made to better train pilots around this time. The whole thing was electromechanical. The simulation was a success and found its way in the Air Force to help better train pilots. Then in 1930s, Stanley G. Bam made a simulation once again for pilots. Although this was a machine that users sat in and wore goggles. The goggles had holographics, smell, taste, and touch to give the user a real-life experience. In the 1950s, Morton Halig made the Sensorama. The Sensorama was basically an arcade game that stimulated all the senses. Halig proceeded to make several short films that the user could then watch in the Sensorama. Morton Halig then created the first VR headset in 1960, although this headset had non-interactive film. Then in the early 1990s, when the first virtual reality arcade games came out, the players would wear VR goggles and play gaming machines with stereoscopic 3D visuals. Shortly after, Sega made a VR headset as much like what users use today. It had head tracking, stereo sound, and LCD screen in the visor. Although this product only did stay in the prototype phase, it was not released to the public.
Augmented reality is a software that was developed to immerse the world around you into the virtual world. The common use of augmented reality is through phone cameras. Augmented reality overlays graphics onto your view of the real world. So when you point at your camera at things such as advertisements, posters, and other things that are placed around a building, you may be able to hold your camera pointed at it. Then on your phone screen, tap on the advertisement. It takes you to the advertisement's website, for example. Another example that was a popular trend in the years was the app Pokemon Go. When attempting to capture a Pokemon, your phone camera was activated and made it appear that the Pokemon was standing on the floor in front of you. In comparison, virtual reality is supposed to fully immerse you into the virtual world. The immersion takes place by using devices to access your different senses, to trick your brain into believing you are actually where your headset displays. The use of head tracking is what makes the experience of the headset so realistic. To make head tracking possible, the headsets are built with a gyroscope, accelerometer, and magnetometer. Companies are actually going as far as appealing to your sense of smell in their devices. Feel Real, a newer virtual reality device, has added new technologies to their virtual reality experience. These technologies include physical stimulation, like smells, effects of heat, water mist, vibration, the wind, and more. With changes like this being made, there's a possibility that we could be fully immersed in a virtual world in the future that is completely identical to the real world.
There are many health concerns regarding VR, such as physical harm to the user and motion sickness. Major manufacturing companies suggest not to use VR without supervision as well as in a crowded space. Since the headsets do not allow the user to be aware of their surroundings, there are some cases where the users either fell or walked into objects. Keeping pets, small children, and other obstacles like ceiling fans out of the area is recommended. One of the major health concerns regarding virtual reality involves the user's eyes. There are many potential hazards when using VR regarding the user's eyes, such as myopia or nearsightedness. Since the lenses on the headsets are no more than 3 inches away from the user's eyes, it causes straining from trying to focus on objects that appear further away. In the United States, studies show nearsightedness rose from 25% of the population in the 1970s to over 40% by 2000. About 10 million American adults are considered severely nearsighted. The biggest culprit for nearsightedness is looking at tablets, phones, and other sources of technology. Doctors predict that VR headsets would only make things worse. Moving on, other negatives to VR include users reporting motion sickness. VR headsets result in users having eye strain, as mentioned earlier, which causes headaches and in some cases nausea. The way the users look around and interact is manipulated as a result of the image being projecting onto the eyes in a way that makes them appear to be further away. In reality, it's only a few inches from the eyes. In result, the headsets are tricking the brain, causing vergence accommodation conflict, and scientists do not know how dangerous this can be. The reason why VR has been found to cause motion sickness more than other pieces of technology, like cell phones and tablets, is because most of us look at cell phones and tablets for a short period of time before looking away. This minimizes their negative effects on the eye. Most manufacturers suggest taking 10 to 15 minute breaks every 30 minutes while using VR, even if the user doesn't think they need it. If something becomes uncomfortable, manufacturers suggest to stop, take off the headset, and close your eyes.
In contrast to the negatives, there are many positives of VR. In the future, medical schools may use VR to help simulate surgery. VR could quite possibly help rookie surgeons who have a lot of room to grow become more advanced in their work and reduce the amount of surgery-related fatalities. Moving on, VR is being used in practice arenas for space travel. Soon-to-be astronauts can experience very realistic simulations through the use of VR, resulting in astronauts who are better prepared for space exploration. Also, airline pilots are using VR to see how well they can do before flying 7.5 miles into the air. Also, firefighters use VR to see if they can handle the tough job they have to conquer. Moving on, for the consumer, VR has been a dream. VR was able to bring the users right to a battlefield or on a roller coaster, or even skydiving. Often people use VR to visit places they're not able to in real life, such as the Colosseum in Rome or on the top of Mount Everest. There is even a company called Nearpod that is designing entire classroom lesson plans based in VR. Schools are now even taking virtual field trips to preserve class funds. This could become a trend for many schools in the near future. This kind of technology could change the future classrooms and allow students to experience things like never before. Obesity in America has increased over the years along with the use of technology. Although VR may change this trend, virtual reality is capable for use with exercise, and some people say it really improves their workout. A company called Blue Goji created a product called Infinity Treadmill, which allows the user to run on a treadmill with a VR headset on. The runner then wears a belt around his or her waist to prevent them from falling. The user will then either be playing a VR game or in a race competing against other runners.
Yeah, my whole foot's like purple. Yeah, it's pretty good. It's like smack this right here, but it's right on the side. So like from my heel all the way like on top here, all the way on top. So everything's just fucking purple and swollen. Keep skating on it, probably not the best idea, but cool. You're gonna get that inward heel, and then I'm not gonna be